Welcome back. Episode 115 of the Grouch and the Brainstorm. I'm Mike, and I'm here today with Jill.
Hey, guys.
And Matt.
What's happening?
And together, we are the Grouch and the Brainstorm.
Together.
Hello.
And Jill, what are you so amused by?
I just can't.
Jill just realized we actually were videoing. Jill's like, look, I'm on TV.
No. I'll have to tell you after we wrap.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's that private. Well, I mean, if it's something I need to edit out now, I might need to edit it out now. So,
No, we good.
okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Now I'm self-conscious. Jill
Yeah.
thinks,
well, hopefully there is something. Maybe there's not.
Mike, let's
anything.
blow our nose.
Yeah, I've been blowing my nose all morning.
I'm an alcoholic. It can't embarrass
Apparently,
me.
the guy that doesn't get sick.
It's gotten sick.
Mike's
Yeah.
an animal, bro.
Yeah, he really
He
is.
does. Like,
Second time this year. I went and had a shot the first time and got some antibiotics, and this time it just snuck back up on me.
You had a relapse of the.
Cold or whatever this is. So,
Well, let's hope it isn't contagious.
well, it doesn't really bother me until that 2 hours of sleep I get every day is interrupted by
Mike's like, I need my 2 hours.
a sneezing fit or something.
Oh,
and
no.
and then it becomes a difficult challenge.
Why do you not sleep that good? Like, what is there anything
I
you just,
I have stuff to do, man. I have stuff to
I
do.
understand?
So that just made me think of something. I have just recently realized I have a syndrome, and just shut your mouth because I know it's called a chew syndrome. Have you heard of that?
A chew?
Like a chew.
Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't heard of that.
Remember? Yeah, a chew.
It is a syndrome, and only about 25% of people have it.
Yeah.
And it is when I get around sunlight or lights, it triggers sneezes.
Apparently, it's 33% here in this room, but
Percentage went up.
yeah, I
you have that too?
I get it too. Yeah, so it's
Yeah, it's about
66%
24 to 35% of people have this syndrome. Other people, because like what happens when I get in sunlight, my nose tingles. I'll look up at the sun, sneeze. Sometimes I don't even need to look at the sun. If I'm ever in a room and I'm feeling the tingle come on in my nose, I'll look up at the light and I sneeze.
That's
Yeah,
the most
sunlight-
Jill syndrome
no,
I've ever heard of.
Sunlight makes me sneeze.
Well, and I Googled it because it's so crazy. It happens to me it's been happening my whole life, but I was watching a movie show the other day, which I thought was really good, by the way. And the guy in that show suffered from what they call a chew syndrome. So I was like, oh my gosh, I do that. Like, I didn't know it was the thing. So I Googled it, and sure enough, I was like, well, I'll be damned. There I go. The more you know, man.
I'd never heard of that. Never heard of it.
It's a less known syndrome.
I actually have. I don't know if I've heard of a chew syndrome, but I know that when I look at the sun, I sneeze.
Yeah.
And I've seen dogs do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've just always been like, oh, I'm light sensitive.
I've just never thought of it.
Well, and these are just the random things that I come up with.
I don't
and, well, in
sneeze that
Google-
much, but when I do it about like 8 times in a row. Like, just can't stop. Like, boom, 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 boom. I don't know what that is, but
Lots of sneezes.
Does this?
See, this effect changed my voice.
Oh my God, Alvin.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know how I feel about it.
do a whole episode. Let's do
Yeah.
a whole episode in
Mr.
those voices.
Roboto.
Yeah, remember the old Ollie Wally Gato, Mr. Roboto?
Yes, I was just thinking of sticks.
This is the one.
This is the one Matt uses when he calls ladies on the phone.
We need to prank call
Hello.
someone. You're like, hello, this is Satan.
That actually creepy.
It's a little creepy, isn't it? Oh man, I just happened to notice I had all this extra stuff on this.
I like it. I like the
box,
evil
so-
one.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the robot one's what it's called. No, it's called evil, but
The robot's the robot. That's Satan.
Yeah, that's demonic, whatever
I
that
also
was.
got an air horn.
Oh, boo. Yeah, no. No time for the air horn.
Pretty tough air horn there, isn't it? And thank goodness this one does have. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're happy about that.
Oh my God, I like that one guy just like, yeah.
Bring him, yeah. Yeah.
You wonder if they just, to make that, if they just hired people to come in and do that, or they just recorded it somewhere else.
Right.
and
They
just used
probably
it.
hauled in about 20 people, stuck them in a room.
Well, I know they weren't sitting at a Rangers game with that recorder because that's don't happen lately for the Texas Rangers.
Oh, they suck.
Not as good as they have been in the past. But anyway, what were we? A Chew syndrome is that
Anyway,
what we were
yeah.
talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
This made me think of it.
There are a lot of syndromes out there.
There is, but that's a lesser known.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't look at someone and say they have a Chew. Well, unless they're looking at the sun. At the
And you
same
see them
time.
sneeze.
Sometimes I wonder if I croak and then I'm in the casket and they do some kind of like, like they did with Ted Williams, and they do all this weird crap with your body and they go, oh, he had about 800 things wrong with him that we never knew.
It's going to freeze him and bring him back.
Yeah,
and
like
have
800 syndromes,
years.
that I'm just,
Ted Williams.
He's a baseball player.
baseball player, they froze that dude.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They had it so the other day I was looking, I guess it was either, I don't know, it was one of these things you come across on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. And they had this, how many different ways there are to get buried after you die, right? There's your traditional put in the ground, and then there's the obviously the what's the cremation. Then they have one where they freeze your body and shake it really hard until it becomes dust. They shake the shit
I wanna
out
do
of
that
it.
one.
Like shake it like a Polaroid picture, And then they have one where they plant you in a ball with some tree.
That's what I
stuff.
want to do. It's a green burial.
Oh, and then they got one where they just put a whole bunch of mushroom seeds on you and put you out in a pasture, and then you sprout mushrooms. And
People eat it and trip.
I don't know if
Oh.
yeah.
I was,
Well,
I was in a treatment center one time, and a young lady shared that her father had passed away, and she wanted to feel closer to him, so she got a tattoo of his face all the way across her chest and stomach. And that's not the weird part.
No, I can only
It's
imagine
going
what the
down
weird part
from there.
is. Yeah,
So
literally going
her
down
and the
from
boyfriend, a few months go by, she's still upset about dear old dad passing away, and the tattoo was not doing what she thought it would do, which would make her feel closer to her dad. And he had been cremated, and his ashes were up on the mantle or wherever you keep them.
Yeah.
And she was doing some cocaine
I
with
knew
her
it! I knew this was
boyfriend,
going there.
and they chopped dad up in the cocaine and snorted dad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, she is one now with
They
Dad.
are. That's as close as you can get. I feel like.
That's
I mean,
disgusting.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody in the room did. We just kind of sat there, and I went, "Well, all righty." So,
The things you hear.
yeah.
There's also another thing where you can get
I wonder if you get sick from
you get
that.
turned into something for MASH, or I don't know what the hell it is, but you get put into a coral reef and become part of the ocean.
I want to be made one of those cigarette pictures like they have at the Koala Club. Just melt me down, be like, "Look, this is what the parking lot looks like," or something.
Have you ever seen they had an episode of Jackass, and Johnny Knoxville would carry his grandmother, or I guess it was an actress, but a really old lady, right? It may have been his real grandma, I don't know, but he would carry her around to different taxidermists to see if after she died they would stuff her, I guess, for lack of better terms, turn her into like a
Get a price on it.
and like everybody was like, dude, that's illegal, get out of here, we're not going to talk about that, don't come around here. But he found one, the guy's like, yeah, we do it right now.
There are some burials where people are now being at the whatever it's called, the funeral, or out of coffin and posed in different poses. There was one I saw where some dude was like on a crotch rocket, like on a motorcycle. Or some people are sitting in chairs. Could you imagine?
I've seen the rappers where they're like at the strip club and they prop them up in the chair, and you see that, and everybody's like, "Yeah." I mean, that's kind of weird.
I always told my daughter I wanted to be stuffed and put in the corner of her home.
Mike,
whenever I
no,
died. It's like,
gross.
it's one of those. Whenever I die, I want my ashes spread out to sea, but I don't want to be cremated.
Yeah.
Let them figure it
You
out.
see just Mike just staring at people for
No.
100 years. And
I would not let that happen.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know if it was a joke or not on Facebook, or not Facebook. I don't have Facebook. We're on what's it called?
One of the social medias.
Yeah, Instagram or something, where they had they put you in a coffee table and then they cover you with that. What's that really stuff that goes in epoxy and turns hard, and then, and you're just laying there with your face all out. Yeah,
this is disgusting.
Everybody's sitting around drinking coffee off this coffee pot, and grandma's face is staring up at you.
My grandmother and grandfather, my grandmother's been passed away, but for years he worked at a funeral home, and his thing was like go pick up people, and they were coming back, and they would be driving, and they're from here in Louisiana. We lived in Arkansas for years, and one year they just rolled up at my house in Arkansas. Hey, we're down the street. We're going to come out and see you. I said, okay. They
had a
pulled
body
up,
with them?
hearse with a body.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's somebody in there? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, I guess
That's
they're
crazy.
not mad.
My dad
about it.
used to drive a hearse, but
Really?
he didn't carry, like dead bodies in it. He's just he was kind of a freak.
Actually, I know a dude in Arkansas buys them and paints them up and tricks them out and stuff.
I had a friend in high school, and his dad had bought a hearse, and they, put the big wheels on it. And
You say you can pick them up cheap. He says like a Cadillac, no miles on the car, and you can pick them up cheap because nobody wants them,
Yeah.
To
Apparently.
each his own.
Yeah.
well, you got to wonder, is it haunted? I mean, if it is, you still park it.
I mean, if I buy one and it's not haunted, I'm gonna be pissed. I want one haunted. If I get, I want people in there
Right.
like
Think about it. The Ghostbusters, they drove one, a big white one, right?
Yeah, or that was an old ambulance.
Oh, well, it kind of looks like one.
The original Ghostbusters. There have been so many created since then.
I think just one.
That was like a station wagon ambulance. They just throw you in the back.
Back then, that was the ambulance. An
Really?
ambulance, yeah. And there's one here in town. Used to be anyway. I don't know if it now is. Over off of North Market, and it was one of the most station wagon ambulance situations, and that's what they looked like back then.
Oh, okay.
Had a station wagon look to it. So, hey, to each his own. If that's what you want to drive, I mean, people buy everything. They'll buy old ambulances, old cop cars, and you see people driving regular cars that they decorated like whatever.
Well, you're right. And you can find any of that in my pasture.
Yeah. Which we'll send a link to on her Etsy account later. You can.
Oh, God.
Look
Seriously,
up-
there's a fire truck out there, some deuce and a halves.
This is my grandson's
Deuce and a
favorite yard.
half. Look, what is a deuce and a half?
It is amphibious, like truck.
Like an army truck.
It's,
kinda.
yes, an army truck, yes.
We may have to look into that later.
Yeah. I feel like I needed to drive down my driveway right now.
Why do they call it a deuce and a half?
Maybe something about the motor. I don't know, the wheels. It's kind of a badass truck.
Yeah, I imagine. So my ex-father-in-law, often talked about when he was in high school, they had a car boat combo that they would drive out to Cross Lake and drive on in and drive around some Crow Island and turn around and drive back, and then you could drive it home.
What?
Yeah, I've never known anybody in my life that had one of those, and he grew up in the 50s, 60s.
What, a duck boat? What you talking about?
I don't know, man. Back then, he didn't have a cell phone. They had a car they could run on the lake, but didn't have a cell phone.
May have been like an old bug, like a VW bug. You could pretty much do anything in those things.
Have you seen the new one?
No.
Oh, it's amazing.
I don't believe it.
Seen one the other day. It's absolutely amazing.
For
I love
real?
it. Yeah,
You know,
I would let my neighbor drive it.
What?
my dad had one that didn't have any floorboards in the back. Think about that for a minute. You're a child. You're riding down the road in your parents' car. There's no floorboards.
Yeah,
It's just
that would be
highway.
definitely be a
Slight safety hazard.
stopper. if you don't get really hurt, you didn't ride home from church with us.
Yeah. I mean, and we still have all our feet. Me and my brothers. Everybody's got both feet, so that's good.
Hands, maybe not.
Yeah.
Feet, yeah. We're talking about no floorboards in the back of
Dad had a car,
kind of like
yeah.
Fred Flintstone, where they, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, today, guys, we're going to talk about Well, I'm gonna start by reading something. Okay. And this is out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I hope I got my bifocals set right. But more than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As far as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension that make for more drinking. And do y'all know where that comes from? That's actually out of Into Action, and that is part of the fifth step, reading in the fifth step, right?
Okay.
And so where I want to go with this is, first off, more than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. The outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. That is not anywhere near about defined strictly to an alcoholic. That is probably almost everybody, right? Mm-hmm. People that don't drink, people that do drink, all of that, right? They show, well, you want to show your best side. You know, you can't go to work and Al Bundy it. Oh, I'm just gonna go sit in the break room, watch TV, and stick my hand down my pants. No, right?
Wait, what?
It's Al Bundy.
No.
So that doesn't necessarily kind of only have the alcoholic in there. That's just a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And then you got the people that say they don't care. Right? But they really do care, or they wouldn't even say they don't care. And so, but the alcoholic, the reason I'm bringing this up, this is in the fifth step. And in the fifth step, we have to cope with a lot of things that
That's for sure.
When I say cope, first off, we have to come to terms with a lot of things. We have to cope with our past. And so, how do we do that? How do we come to terms with some of the things that we did? Now, those of us who aren't in jail or aren't incarcerated, we actually have things we can do to take our mind off of it. But does our mind go back to it? Or do we push it into the back of our mind and say we're coping with it? Jill, you know the human mind a lot better than most. Of us, anyway, of the crowd in the room, it's not good to push stuff to the side, right? But you got to cope with it. You got to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So,
no, agreed.
What do you do to cope with the past?
Well, I think it's just like what they tell us in this program is, first of all, you got to get honest with yourself. And I think that was like, hey, I am living this, crazy double life. I'm a junkie, but I'm trying to appear better than, and I think that's what I was trying to do that whole time is look like I had it together when I actually didn't. And there's just so many things that happened out there that I was trying to run from, and I was trying not to be real with, compartmentalize, suppress. It was just insane. And coping with them, I think that, the fact is, they just don't disappear. I mean, you just can't erase part of your life. You can either use that to stay in your bullshit and to justify and minimize and, bullshit yourself and stay where you are. Can use that to motivate you to make change. Because I never, want to be that person that was trying so hard to be something that I wasn't, if that makes any sense. I really, really, really wanted people to think that I had it together. And I didn't. I absolutely didn't. And I think that like the thing was like I wasn't fooling anybody. Like no one. And so therefore I was only fooling myself. You know, and a lot of this stuff I've had to forgive myself for because it is to the point of like what's the word? What's the saying I'm thinking of? Like the incomprehensible demoralization. What do you do with those things? Because some of those are just so sickening. You're just like, I can't even believe I went to that, you know, to that place in my addiction that is like, how could you let that go? And there's a lot of things that happened that I did that are incredibly embarrassing and shameful, but like, it just is what it is. I've worked through it. I've talked about it. I was able to get honest with myself. And none of that stuff would have happened had I not been using. I can tell you that much. And it hasn't. I don't do the same things I used to do. So I use that for corrective behaviors. A lot of people do different things with these, you know, and I think the point of working a good fifth step is bringing all those to light, getting honest with yourself because, you know, and getting rid of the defects of character that you probably have used for forever how long to cover all that up, you know, and to make it okay, to seem somewhat okay to you, to where you can somewhat live with it, even though you're not. Does that just make any sense at all?
Yeah, it did. It did.
It's all stuff I never want to go back to. It's all stuff I never want to forget because if I do, that could be my ass. It's important that I remember those things, but I don't sit around thinking about them because I also don't want to lose out on my present because that's really all we have is the right now. And if I'm consumed with things that have happened in the past and, you know, that can cause depression. And I just don't have time for any more of that, to be honest with you. Like, sure. I think all of those things are there for a purpose. And if we are not learning from them, then what are we doing with them? Yeah. You know, I think that we're harming ourselves if we aren't. And I have learned from them. I don't do, you know, like I said, I don't do those things anymore. You know, some people they suppress, they regress, they compartmentalize, and they do everything in their life to make them feel better about themselves and what they've done in the past. And, but it just hurts them. And
I think the relief for me was going through it all and then somebody go, oh, you did so-and-so, you were it. And I go, yep, that was me.
And then they're like,
so simple. It's like,
me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Working with a sponsor made me realize that I wasn't the only one.
But it was not in the dark anymore, you know? And then I also realized as I went along through treatment and then getting out, doing the steps, I went, oh, okay. So I had internalized all this stuff and I went, I'm not a serial killer. I just got issues. And some of them I don't know how to deal with, you know? And so once I saw that there was a way to do that I felt night and day better. It
is nice in that sense because you kind of, you know, the secret's out. You're no longer holding in a secret that's, you know, you're holding on to all this shame and everything. And, yeah, I think that's how we do it because it's a group model is what AA is. It's a fellowship and encourages talking about things and situations that most people haven't gone through, and just sitting in a meeting and hear someone, you know, talk about an aspect of their story. And I'm like, wow, me too. And I was never going to tell a soul. So when that happens, I feel less shame, you know, and guilt. And I feel more likely to open up and let those things out as well.
And I think we figure out in the steps leading up to 5 that we're not God, we're human beings. And so just like Mike was saying earlier, a lot of that stuff applies to everybody. It doesn't just apply to alcoholics and addicts, you know, and when we start to realize I'm a human being with flaws, I have flaws, and I can look at it, and we can take that whole 1 through 5 and on and apply all of that stuff. It kind of works together to sink in and go, okay, mistakes are made, character defects identified. I have them. Everyone else has them. My sponsor has them. The folks I go to meetings with have them. The world has them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when we start to realize that, then you start that recovery of, okay, I can fix this now. I can see what I have and I can look at it and work on it.
Exactly.
And then I don't look back at it in shame because like I said, you run into somebody who's struggling and it's me too. It's like, hey, I was that way. I did that, you know, and I don't have any shame about it. If it's helping somebody else, I'll tell them whatever we need to talk about, you know?
Yeah. I still think there's some emotion attached to those old, you know, to the things that happened. Because I know I didn't escape my addiction without pain.
Sure.
And I think a lot of what has happened to me and, you know, things that I have done have created, you know, my present, what I'm saying is that I don't think I got away unscathed. Duh.
Yeah.
Unscathed is not a word.
No.
Like you have to have the D there, like, you know.
Well, I was just throwing on the old ED, but if that makes any sense.
Better than throwing on the old VD.
Ew. What? So anyway, moving
regret in
on.
the past.
That one time at band camp, you know?
No.
What a good movie.
Well, and I don't think I'm the only one because I think I still have some pain associated with some of the things that have happened in my life. It was not my best hour. Let me just tell you that. Yeah. And it did affect me. It affected me emotionally. But like I said, that's what the steps are for, and that's what therapy's for, and that's what friends are for. You know, I try not to get too bogged down in what happened yesterday because there's not a damn thing I can do about it. I can't change it. You know, I think that having rigorous acceptance when it comes to these things and knowing that I was impaired and that's not the kind of stuff I do anymore. You know, I think that in recovery, why it's so important to do esteemable acts and build self-esteem is to not do those same things again, because our esteem was a lot different then. So it's important that I do the right thing because I don't want to have those negative emotions that are associated with doing all of those things. They're not 100% gone. But I don't sit around and, you know, shame myself or, you know, I shouldn't have done this. I'm in acceptance of it.
And so, yeah, we do. If you think about it, I mean, we put it into relative terms, right? We do very little really bad stuff, right? That causes a lot of emotional turmoil. So I've been, 50 years alive. Mm-hmm. Okay, 52 years.
I was about to say, I think you're rounding down.
Yeah, 52 years
I was going to call him out, but thank you,
At some
Jill.
point, you do start rounding down. Except for when you go to the Social Security office, and then I'm 78.
I'm 900 years old.
But 53 years, 52 years, most of the stuff I've done is good. You can't even put a year's worth of bad stuff in there. Mm-hmm. So there's 50 plus years of not bad behavior, not stuff to be ashamed of, right? So when it comes down to it, what am I going to be remembered by?
Yeah, what's your legacy going to be?
Well, I think about that too. I think about it. How am I going to be remembered after I pass? And the truth is, I'm not. I'm not going to be remembered very long when you look at overall. Okay, there are people who done some really, really bad shit thousands of years ago that we still talk about.
Yeah.
but only a
Just a
couple
few.
that really did some good stuff that we still talk about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We always remember the negative. So most likely in 100 years after, my kids and their kids and we've all gone on to
Yeah,
wherever it is.
no one will know who you
No
are.
one's going to remember anything I did.
No.
Right? So I've got to just take this little bit of time that I have here because that's all I have. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life trying to undo something I can't, which is the past, right? I think it was Joe maybe said one day, you have a 100% chance of not changing the past. It's there.
I believe it.
If you're going to lay around and waller in it and all that, you got to get through that because you're messing up your present, which is tomorrow's past. Yeah, it is. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I did for a second, though. I was like, wait, what?
I'm glad you said that about doing right the majority of the time because that's something always with my guys too. There is that humility and that self-realization of 4 and 5 and doing that. But then it's kind of break you down to your core a little bit there. But at the same time, I like to follow that up and go, okay, here's what we have that we don't need to work on. Here's the things that we're going to build on. Because that's just me doing that because I feel like we do have that mentality of you're the worst. We do this to ourselves,
Yeah.
I'm the worst ever. And that's what I thought. And yeah, I did a lot of screwed up stuff and a lot of bad stuff. But like Mike said, we're all humans. We all have those sides of, I did things that were right and good throughout addiction too. And that's what we learned to we have other attributes here. We don't have to, we're not, a total psychopath. I mean, it's not that kind of deal. And I just feel like, yeah, at the end of the day, even taking the bad and flipping that by helping others, that's where that starts to shine. And people go, man, this person took something that was horrible and has made it into something.
Yeah, they made lemonade.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but, I think there's still a lot of people out there. It's just not that easy.
And I can see that. I can see it not being easy, but it has to be done.
Agreed. I mean, absolutely agreed. I think, that may be a reason why we do see such high suicide rates. Not only that, in the 5th step, this is our option to be completely honest.
And we don't have to be. That's
Exactly.
why integrity is actually the I don't want to say
Principle?
principle, but for lack of a better term, it's the principle.
Yeah.
Behind it. And because this is your one chance to do the first time in the steps to do something you don't normally do.
Yeah.
And that is be completely honest with your sponsor.
A lot of people can't.
And there's a good chance your sponsor is a little bit older than you, grew up a whole other time, and done a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
people don't, people may be in denial. And I think denial is huge when it comes to this step of the process is not willing to come off of something because it's too painful to go to, and I can't do that because I'm afraid what's going to happen, and that can be related to trauma or, just incredibly painful emotions. But a lot of people are just not exactly willing to do that. And I think that's why a lot of people get to that 4th step and they're like, I'm out. Bye.
mean, my sponsor told me we did 1, 2, and 3. We started 4, and he looked at me and said, "Now we're going to separate. This is what separates the men from the boys and the ladies from the girls." And he said, "This is going to decide where you go from here." And how many? I know y'all sponsor too. How many people do you have do 1, 2, and 3? If they do those 4 hits, followed by 5. No action at all. But I wonder what the percent, I know there's no percents in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I wonder what the percent of people that go back out because of not doing 4 and 5 and they get to that 1, 2, 3 and go, well, wait, I'm out. And I mean, I've had people really mad about that step. Like, it's nobody's business. I'm not telling. But the results I see what happens, I go, hey, I did it. It's what worked for me. That's what I'm telling you to do.
It's a fear. It's a fear that they are in denial about, that they're not willing to get honest, about. And, I think that's why that step is so important because, it's pivotal.
Do you have a lot of guys, Mike, that do that, or have you had over the years sponsee guys do just 1, 2, 3 and
I've had
balk, and they're like, I'm not doing.
I've never had one say, I'm not going to do anything, but I have had them just stop showing up
I've had both
after about 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's normally whenever I do 3, I try to make it. My normal meeting time with them is 1 hour. And I just feel like we lose, unless it's a 5th step or something, I feel like we're going to lose attention after an hour. They're going to get restless or have to go to the bathroom. And so I try to keep it at about an hour. But whenever I do that step 3, I try to keep it at about 45 minutes. Seriously, I do that on purpose. And that's to allow them time to start writing their 4 with me. Right? Because if you read the big book, that's how it's interpreted. Like it just
Goes
3
right into
does
it.
absolutely no good unless you immediately start on 4. That's the way I read it. And that's the way other people read it. Some people may read it differently. Unfortunately, it's no different than any other good book. People going to interpret it the way they want to interpret it. But that's what I do. It's like a 45-minute and give them, and that way if they do balk, they've already started.
So do you do? Maybe I'm out of line asking this. I'm
You
just
can
kind of
ask whatever.
curious.
We're not naming names. Roger. Oh, I'm sorry. Everybody knows I sponsor.
He's fishing too, by the way. So he's out on chilling, living the dream. But
Yeah, he told me he was going to go on a fishing trip with son-in-law or son or something.
That's awesome.
yeah, he's a good guy. But do you do 4 with your sponsees totally, or do they do it on their own and then come back with you?
No, they do it on their own.
But you just get them started.
Well, I do it the way my sponsor had to do it. First off, we're doing the 12 steps. Unless there's a vacation or something involved, you're going to spend an hour a week with me. That's just how it is. Every week, we're going to spend an hour together. And when we get to the 4th step, right, they know they're going to be with me in a week. Like, so we have that 45-minute 3rd step session. They start writing for the last 15 minutes, which gives it an hour, but they start their writing and all that. We cover what we're going to do in the initial. So then in the initial meeting, and then we start going through. Anyway, if the next meeting, when they get there, they're having trouble coming up with stuff, then I help them, or I help them think.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put words in their mouth or thoughts in my head, And this is an example. Never happened with a sponsee. So that's why I'm going to use this as an example. But, they're saying, hey, I don't really have a resentment. But didn't you tell me your mom beat you when you was a kid? Why would you tell me your mom beat you if you don't have a resentment about that? Why would that still be on your mind all these years? That never has happened. None of my sponsees have ever been beat by their mom. But that's the kind of questions that my sponsor asked me because and that way they don't lose interest in that 4th step.
Yeah.
And then they'll go off, and then that also may be like, oh, that's the kind of stuff they're looking for, right?
Mine said I was
By the way, my
bullshitting, but-
mom didn't beat me either whenever I was a kid. That was all just an example. She probably needed to.
For sure.
But yeah,
Slap the shit out of me a couple times.
in a general way, that's what mine did. Was like, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and I go, oh well, yeah, I did that. Well, you're a thief, you're a liar, you're a whatever,
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, okay, I got you. So
Well, mine never called me names.
well, he defined things that I had done as dishonest or whatever.
Behaviors.
Yes,
But
yeah.
I by no means did I say, okay, so we just read the 4th step. Go on, go do it, come back, and then when they come back, they have nothing, and we're like, well, we're not moving on to the 5th till you. No, we didn't do any of that. Like I'm going to help them along, and my sponsor actually used what do they call like index cards with me, on a lot of this stuff. We didn't-
Flashcards.
that kind of, he would say, well, what about, your teachers? What about your grandparents? Well, he would go to these different areas and make me think, but he
Yeah.
never, and we did that, right? Neighbors.
that.
And, that way there was never, okay, well, when you get that, holler at me when that's done and we'll do a fifth step. It was never like that. And that's just how I've done it with if everyone that's made it that far, but I could throw them in a small group of any of that's made it. Out of 100 and maybe 30 people I've sponsored in 14 years, maybe 20 stuck around and are
You're saying 30 did 4 and 5?
out of 130, I probably got 20 tough 2, 4, and 5.
So everybody listening to that, by the way, that's the point of this conversation.
And that's just that's a rough guess, like you said.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing. So I could, if I had to be put on the spot, and somebody called in and they're like, "Hey, we want to ask you a question. How many sponsees have you had that stayed sober long term?" Oh man, I could only count. I could just rattle off maybe 5 names,
yeah.
right? And I could name off another 5 that I kind of inherited after they already had 3 or 4 years of recovery.
Yeah, I have a bunch of that, a couple of
Yeah.
those as well.
So, so that's kind of, and none of which has anything to do with me or the way I work my steps. It's just that's the kind of like what we're looking at. People, when we get to that 4th step and 5th step and people start having a look at the past, and I have seen people come in the rooms and do really good for a year, right? And they're, man, we celebrate with cake and all that, and then come to find out they have refused to do the 4th and 5th step. They're like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing the 4th and 5th step. And then you get a call one night in the middle of the night and they're just hammered.
Yeah.
Well, and that is, I know this is going to sound crazy, and there's a lot of old school AA people that may listen to that, but that is perfectly okay. If they don't want to do the steps and they end up hammered, that is perfectly okay. They just haven't had the right ass whooping to take it serious.
Agreed.
And I can sit here and look at you guys. I've been there, right? And it just, oh my God, it's so bad. I'll do anything to not feel this bad, right? But then you get there and you're like, I don't want to go to meetings every week. I haven't drank in a while. And life is, why would I even do this? And then 6 months later, you find yourself drunk again, right?
Yeah.
When the truth is, just do the work. And this is what we talk about, by the way, when we talk about do the work. This is, you hear someone who's not, they don't mention Alcoholics Anonymous, they're on TV, they're in recovery, and they may have, I don't know, 15, 16 years. Let's just take someone, Brad Pitt, right? Or Bradley Cooper has longer than I have sobriety, right? And they'll say things like, well, I was willing to do what I had to do and do the work. And you hear them say the term, do the work. Well, this is doing the work. And that work sucks. When you have to sit down and analyze, sorry, I said analyze. Yeah. When you have to sit down and analyze all of the stupid stuff, and you have to come to terms with that. You're not going to come to terms with it until you come to terms with it. You're not going to wake up one day and say, oh, I forgive myself for doing that.
Right.
Right.
Doesn't happen overnight.
And some things are worse than others. You could wake up. I saw this show the other day. There was some police officers, and they were talking. It's a real deal, right? It's real, like cops or whatever. It was just a snippet of a show. But they were like, does he know? And they were like, no, he doesn't know. He thinks he just got arrested for a DUI.
I saw that.
He was passed out. And they had to go in the next room and tell this cat that he had ran a stop sign and killed 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I can only imagine that's going to take a lot longer to come to terms with than the fact that you ran off with somebody's wife.
Absolutely.
And so there are different, for lack of a better term, different sins. They're going to take longer to get over, but you ain't going to come to terms with any of them if you keep drinking.
Right.
And
I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were talking about trauma impacting them being younger and all that stuff. And they were like, "What about you?" And I was like, "I really don't have no trauma. Like I have things that bother me, but I don't have what I hear people talk about trauma. I just don't have anything like that. Like I've never had to, you know what I mean? Like I totally am sympathetic and understand. I just personally haven't really had that, you know. And I think there's different levels of things that.
And there is.
Sure.
I mean, I know that because I do have different levels of traumatic things that have happened. And, you know, there's things I have forgiven myself. I've worked through. I have done everything that I can. But like I said, there's a pain inside of me that just, I don't know will ever go away.
Yeah. And
because someone did lose their life in the
and-
situation.
So let's just say that pain did go away
That'd be great.
short term. Would it be great long term if that pain went away? And the reason I'm going with that is the reason I got sober was because I became so desperate. Mm-hmm. I need that. I still need to have that fear. I still need to have a little pain in order for me, because I'm an undisciplined person.
Okay, I like where you're going with this. I get that. It does keep me on track because I know that I can let it go out of control.
Yeah.
And that's going to get me drunk or get me something doing stupid.
So
something doing stupid.
Could that be could that be our penance?
It is mine.
And we have to, but being the undisciplined people we are, maybe that's what we need to discipline us.
It's what keeps me on track. It is my greatest motivator.
There you go.
And that's
So
what I'm
if it
saying.
goes away, you lose all motivation.
No, I mean, I get that. But that's what I was saying. It's like it has corrected my behavior. I don't talk to people like that anymore. You know, I just don't. But it's still, you know, there's a lot of pain associated with it.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I wish I would have done something different.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I'm not saying I have forgiven myself. It's still, you know, I don't think there's enough forgiving myself to.
And I think that's what was getting at is like with the trauma stuff that I've been around with people of different things, it rears its head from time to time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, where did that come from? And then when you think about it, and this is me looking at another person, somebody that I'm close to that has a lot of that stuff as well, I start to see when that stuff's bothering that person. I can tell by behaviors, and it can be a perfectly normal day, and then something will, you know. And so, like I said, I'm grateful that I don't have anything like that really. But I do. I couldn't imagine, you know.
Yeah. I don't think it's like a one and done kind of deal. I think it's something that I had to continually. And I'm not saying that I think about it all the time because I don't, but it's something I have to continually work on. Just like I have to continually, you know, work on my sobriety. I have to work on my emotional health.
Mm-hmm.
And was there a time when you thought about it all the time?
Every day of my life before I got sober.
There you go. So I mean, there's a countermeasure for just about everything.
Yeah. And I don't even know if I thought, I mean, like, it's weird because I was in some type of denial and I hated myself because of it. But I don't know if I was blitzed for so long. And I know that I was drinking and drugging myself to death at that point. You know, it's just that pain was just, but I don't hurt myself anymore like that.
Well, I think, and on the flip side of that, okay, one of the things, and this is where I was really guilty of doing this, but in order to try and justify or come to terms with my behavior while I was drinking, I would try to perform while I was sober, right? And when I say perform, like buy my kids whatever they wanted.
Oh, like overcompensate?
Overcompensate. Just give them whatever they wanted. Zero accountability for any of their actions. None of that. You know, there wasn't even any tough love. It was just, I was a bad dad for all these years. Now let me be a good dad. And in turn, that didn't do any good for them. It just really fueled my son's drug problem.
Yeah.
and his kids, because zero accountability. I mean, just so by me trying to make myself feel better because I wasn't a good dad for several years, and when I say wasn't a good dad, I wasn't present,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense. There wasn't any
for
of
sure.
that major stuff that you see on TV, but I was trying, so I compensated by giving him everything he ever wanted, but then I still didn't spend time with him. He was gone, Mm-hmm. And I think now we both, me and him both, have learned a lot of lessons over that, because
Sure.
he does good now, and but we still look back now. We can look back at it and laugh, and I don't always even laugh about it if I allow myself to go there. I don't go there very often.
Yeah.
I don't think about it very much. I don't. Matter of fact, I had found myself making excuses for some of the stuff he did because of me. Mm-hmm. And that's even worse. Oh, well, he'd have never done it. Because whenever you're looking at something, let's just say he does something really bad. Well, the court system don't look at that. They don't give a damn if you were an unpresent father. This is what's going on with him, right?
Right.
So the best that can happen is he has some kind of discipline instilled in him so that he doesn't do those things. It has nothing to do with what we can buy. Those are things, unless you're buying him a military school somewhere, or putting him, you know what I mean? Or buying him a straitjacket, or with him a padded room and one of those locks that go on the back of your jacket, keep you from getting out. But so I overcompensated to try to cope with my past.
Yeah.
And that would be with a lot of stuff. When it came to my marriage, I got married again after I got sober. Try to overcompensate there, right? And that led to a lot of mistakes. Try to justify anything that's done wrong by the other person by my past actions. And so you go through, let's just say, 10 really bad years, and all of a sudden you're saying, well, they wouldn't be acting like that. So you're going to go through another 10? No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You've got to say, hey, if I'm going to stay sober for the rest of my life, I got to start with one day at a time, which is today, and I'm not going to be able to stay sober in that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the best thing for me to do is just head in left direction and try to be the best person I can possibly be. Which is why because we're talking about step 5 right here, basically. But after that, what do, right? We find out or we clearly have a definition and acknowledge our character defects.
Absolutely.
And are willing to do something about them. And then we go, we talk to God about it and say, hey, these are my character defects. However, I don't get to pick which ones you take.
Yeah.
I may need some. It's up to you, boss. And then you've got, you make a list of people. Then you go out and make amends. And then you start taking a daily inventory, which hopefully the whole time here after 4, you're already taking some kind of daily inventory, because you sure as hell don't want to have to go back and do 4 before you move on to 10. And then 11, you keep building that spiritual situation. And in 12, you kind of do what we're doing today. And you share that experience, strength, and hope. But it all starts with having, you got to cope with your past.
Right.
And some days are better than others for me. Some days I still have a hard time with it, I mean, when I say some days, and there's not a day in particular, I do know people out there that have days, that'll remind them of things that have happened in the past.
Yeah.
They'll have a really funky day. I don't have those days. Mm-hmm. I just don't, but not yet.
Yeah.
If that means anything. Today's Memorial Day, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are not having a good day.
Right.
Because and that's perfectly okay, right? Mm-hmm. But hopefully they're coming to terms with whatever it is that's hurting them.
Right.
And that's what I had to do. I have to come to terms sometimes daily with something, and forgiving myself, beating myself up. Hey, I guess we we try to be as helpful as we can, right? As alcoholics, and we go out and we do community stuff and we donate stuff and we give stuff away, but that does not mean at any given point you have to let people run you over, because we are in the world and people will run your ass over the minute you let them.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah, absolutely.
And-
yeah, you have to have boundaries.
So people do take advantage of these things too, and
Yeah.
I've seen that. So you have to don't beat yourself up, But hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. If going out and passing out meals on the street makes you feel better about yourself, do it.
Yeah, for sure.
But don't do it thinking it's gonna make your past go away. If that makes any sense, it's
Yeah.
just that's something totally. That may make 10 years from now feel better about today, what today was 10 years ago. It's not going to make you feel better about what you did 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
I think it'll make you feel better in the moment. That's the kind of stuff that gets me out of my head.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's important that I do those things.
And I'll share some of my story, right? This really happened. Me and my son were, I wouldn't say estranged, but we had some issues. He didn't like me, and I didn't like who he was becoming, but I really wanted to be a good dad. I really did. And so he was about 16, 17 years old, and he was still in high school. And I went out and bought him a Corvette, the latest Corvette. It was a C7 Corvette. I bought it in Dallas. And he drove it, I want to say, for about 5 months, and he just shredded it up here on Airline Drive. I mean, just took it to the toast, man. I mean, just pieces everywhere. And his little buddy's head went through the windshield, and he's okay, but his head went through, well, I mean, obviously not perfect, but, could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
The truck he hit was totaled, and they wiped out the front of a neighborhood, okay? On top of that, police had a couple extra things for him after that. So what do? I went and got him another Corvette. It wasn't long after that. I went and got him another Corvette. Mm-hmm. And what did he do?
Shred.
It wasn't shredded, but the left side was missing.
Damn.
Yeah. So I'm going to be honest with you. My dad, not a drinker, right? My dad, probably the best man I possibly could ever meet. And my dad, first off, my dad wouldn't bought me the best bicycle. My dad's like, if you want a mongoose, you go get one.
My dad would have said the city bus runs right out here.
My dad said, if you want to wear Guess jeans, by all means, go buy
holy
them.
1985.
Guess you're going to need a job.
Yeah. If you want a perm in the back of your hair, you pay for it, Billy Ray. But that's my dad, right?
Yeah.
And if I look at my whole life collectively, okay, I'm a pretty okay guy at 53 years old, right? 52, whatever the hell I am, right? I'm a pretty okay guy, besides that little drinking thing that went on for a few years, right? But had my dad done all that? You know what I mean? So you see where I was trying to over and over just say, hey, look, okay, well, here you go. And you can't do that. So I think he was 19 years old and had totaled 2 Corvettes, a 370Z, and maybe that was it. Yeah. And then, so here's another one. I tried to justify it by, well, he plays too much Grand Theft Auto and he watches all those Paul Walker shows with Vin Diesel, and that maybe that's where he got it, because he couldn't have done it if I hadn't gave him the stuff. Mm-hmm. TVs or not, right? So, but I was performing and I was trying to hopefully make up for this past, right? Whenever, truth be known, that all kind of shut down when he was about 22, 21 years old. So about 7, 8 years ago, we got out of all that business. We still had a couple of things we did together and work on them. He didn't do drugs or do any of that. He didn't wreck anymore, any of that. But now, if you look at it, it's just like we're done. We're not. Why did we do that? That's so. He gets more out of going fishing, and we go catch fish. I know I talk about that a lot, but riding the motorcycles and fishing is big to us. That's what we do. So maybe you don't have to go to the extremes, right? Just spend time with them. If my past, the worst thing I did was not spend time with my kids, if they're willing to spend time with me now, go do it. Because that's all I can do.
Yeah,
Right?
you're right.
So that's, and that to me is probably the worst thing I have to come to terms with was my children, right? And then there, my ex-wife and the failed marriages, not just marriage. Maybe the best way to come to terms and cope with that past was just to leave it alone, right where it was.
Yeah.
Because it's just like going out to the snake pen out here you have and waking that snake back up every time you shoot it, right? You're going to keep getting the same result.
Yep.
Not that you shoot it, Miss Faye. They relocate them to another area. So I'm just saying bring them back every time. So you don't have to do all that crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I concur.
So Matt,
I'm processing. I'm processing over here. Yeah, I mean, I think we even dealing with that, like Jill's talking about, or dealing with our past and things come up, and like mine too is with my kids, and I go, man, that's probably the biggest regret is them, especially my older ones, growing up in that, But I'm going to go see a grandbaby in a few weeks, or next week, and that stuff has. And sometimes I look at them and I'm like, man, that's awesome how good at people they are in spite of what they had to deal with growing up. And I would rather have a little bit of regret feeling today and be able to do what we do now than be the way I was back then with them.
Yep.
So I'll take a little bit of, it's almost like you're talking about, Jill. It's kind of a little reminder of like,
Yeah.
tighten up,
and maybe that pain a little bit of it might be needed.
And that's what you said. God doesn't remove. I think sometimes God leaves things for us to as a reminder to go, hey, let's stay focused on what we're doing here. And pain is a great motivator.
It's my biggest.
And let's just face it, we have faith. We have to have faith in this program. You have to have faith if you're going to stay. So I have enough faith to know that if there are things about my past that are still bothering me, that he would have taken them away if I didn't need them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Agreed. And I mean, it's not to say because there are some, just to throw this in, mental illness that can cause people to still hold on to things like this and not be able to let it go. And,
Well, that makes,
depression will do that and things like that.
and there's medication and therapy. We'll go back to that last
absolutely,
one. So,
absolutely. It's just it can be easier for.
And the truth is, if you're having thoughts, right? If
Yeah.
and I'll just put it straight up. If you're having suicidal thoughts, you need to tell somebody and get some help. Period. Don't wait around thinking they're going to go away. None of that. You tell somebody and get some help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please do.
And
Please do.
That is not a normal function of anything that I've seen. You need to get some help and
Talk to someone.
Talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Everybody that I've ever known that has taken that step, right, to take their life, everybody I've ever known, nobody's seen it coming. Mm-hmm. Nobody. Like it was just out of now I say that nobody I talked to had seen it coming. Maybe someone else had heard or seen something that I haven't had any knowledge of. But
Right.
of the ones closest to me that's happened in the past few years, I didn't see or expect any of that, right? And so may want to say something to somebody.
Yeah, please do.
If there's something about your past you can't shake, man, let it go. I can tell you, I've known people that came in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous facing 10-year sentences. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty rough. That's a pretty rough deal, knowing you're going to go sit in a cell for 10 years or have to adapt. And they go through the steps and everything, and then they actually go do their 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've had quite a few friends do time in recovery.
Yeah.
But they made it. They stayed
made it.
sober.
and get out and start over. And they're Matt brought up something about the grandkids. You know, there is an after. That's what I call it. You don't think about, right? So when I got sober, I'm thinking about, oh, well, one day me and the kids are going to do this, or I'm going to walk my daughter down the aisle, or I'm going to go to graduation. But there's even after that. Like, what about the grandkids' graduation?
Yeah.
Or in my parents' case, it's probably going to be the great grandkids' graduation. I mean, there's an after that you have no idea what's going to happen.
Man, and I love today, like, my phone rings and I know it's the baby because it's FaceTime, and he's done jacked his mama's phone and he's got it held right up to his chin and he's just jabbering away. And he's like, I had to call Pawpaw. That's awesome.
That's good
like,
stuff.
you just get that odd time, whatever it is, whenever his little brain decided, I need to call my Pawpaw.
I miss those.
Yeah.
When Ava would call me and she's like breathing really heavy and she's like, Aunt Deal. Yeah. She was just like, yes, baby.
But I mean, those things I never thought about sitting in a treatment center or those first
No.
few years of just trying to maintain and like see if I'm even alive, you know. And like now it's just those things. Like, I'll take the uncomfortable, you know, I can deal, it's manageable now, you know. And it's like nothing's perfect. I don't think anybody's life is perfect, but those things are manageable and I have a way to deal with them. And I'll take that all day and have the FaceTimes and all the things we do today. Doing a daggone podcast.
Yeah.
Go back to my rehab and ask them, did they think I'd be
Right. It's a minor sacrifice in which we get such huge returns.
That's true.
But it's one of the scariest. And you know, just it takes courage.
Yeah,
It
sure.
does take courage. A lot of it takes courage. And that's something that if you don't have, you can ask for.
Yeah.
And you know, and y'all may not agree with this, but I had a guy backing up on 4 and 5. I said, man, at least try it. Like, let's do a little bit of it.
What could it hurt?
Yeah, what's it gonna hurt? Try me out on a little bit, you know, like
Sounds like
put your toe in the
trying to
water.
get somebody to do meth or something.
I mean, it
Who would have
almost,
gladly done it? But,
yeah,
but do 4 and 5. Oh, I don't know, man.
Right.
that amazes
fuck me
me.
up.
I draw the line right here, man.
That amazes me too. Is you guys know, you go in treatment centers and people they're in that moment, they're willing to do anything. And I always tell them, I'm like, you know, if you were out and in your addiction and your dope dealer had the dope, you would hobble down the street with no arms and no legs, bleeding to
bet
go
you-
get it.
You bet you would.
But we tell y'all, go sit in the air conditioning, eat free donuts and coffee for an hour a day and listen to some people. And we're just like, oh, I'm not doing that.
Oh, no,
you know,
man, that's a whole hour.
That's a lot of, you know, it's like, that doesn't even make any sense.
It really doesn't, though. I mean, just for an hour? God, what you stay passed out for a whole weekend.
I passed a guy last
Can't do an
summer
hour.
walking down Barksdale, and I thought I recognized him, and I pulled over, and it was a guy I recognized, and he was out of treatment, in sober living, had no car, was working, and he was walking to the Survivors Club, the NA Club.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he was doing, man. Middle of August, he's chunking down the highway, sweating, and I thought, man, you're going to be all right. And that's what I told him. I said, if you're willing to do that kind of stuff, you're going to be all right, man.
Absolutely.
Just keep grinding, you know? So,
We have any announcements?
hit the button. Hit the button, Mike. I know you
Hope
want to
this is
hit
the
it.
right button. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's not a birthday or anything, but it's kind of something cool. Our friends Stephanie and Dwayne that came on, we did a
remember.
bonus with them.
Remember when they were
So
on?
she just got her counseling deal going and went to work at a treatment center in West Monroe. And she's fired up about that and called me to see if we could get people over there to speak. So I told her, I was like, I know a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
So,
Well, congratulations.
but proud of her. Her and Dwayne are doing really good. Dwayne just celebrated 5-6 years, somewhere in there, and a few months ago. But they're doing really good and just proud of her. That's awesome, you know?
It is.
They never need anybody to speak. Let me know. I'll get Jill
So-
over there.
So our friend Dickie goes to work where she goes to work and not tell her business. And she calls me or texts me and she goes, "Hey, could you send me a couple of people's names that are willing to speak on a thing?" And I went, "Yeah." So I just started at A and I started hitting them and she goes, "That's enough." And I'm like, "I'm in C. I hadn't even got all the way through the alphabet. Like I got whole bunches of
Yes.
people. So
Well, good for them. Good for them. We'll do whatever we need to do. Any other announcements anybody think of?
Don't have any.
Well,
happy Memorial Day,
Happy
everybody.
Memorial Day.
Yes.
That is today. So I guess that's about it for the show, guys. Another week wrapped up. And this one won't actually air for, golly, 6 days. But that's okay. Yeah, it won't air until June the 1st. When we will have been doing this for 25 months. It's insane.
It is insane.
So anyway, we have been here at Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana, and we have been the Grouch and the Brainstorm.